Dr. Lisa Martinez stared at the blank communication screen for the third time that morning. The silence from Galactic Command should have worried her more, but she had grown used to the delays. Research Station Kepler-7 sat at the very edge of known space where messages took weeks to travel back and forth to the core worlds. She turned back to her work, studying the strange energy readings that had brought her team to this remote location 6 months ago. The patterns were unlike anything in the galactic database. They pulsed with a rhythm that seemed almost alive, appearing and disappearing without warning across several star systems. "Still nothing from command?" asked Commander Jake Phillips as he entered the lab. The military liaison was a calm man in his 40s, with graying hair and steady hands. He had served on frontier stations before and knew how isolation could affect a crew. "Not a word in 10 days, Lisa replied, brushing a strand of dark hair from her face. "But you know how it is out here. The communication relays break down constantly." Jake nodded, but his expression remained troubled. In his 15 years of military service, he had never seen command go silent for this long. Even during the worst technical failures, automated messages still got through every few days. The research station housed 12 people total. Besides Lisa and Jake, there were 8 other scientists and 2 maintenance technicians. They were studying the energy anomalies that appeared to originate from the empty space between star systems. The Coalition's best scientists believed these readings might lead to new forms of faster-than-light travel. Lisa's colleague, Dr. Brian Murphy, looked up from his console across the room. The young physicist had been tracking energy spikes for hours. "Lisa, you need to see this. The patterns are getting stronger and they're forming something like a network." She walked over to his station, where dozens of graphs showed energy levels across nearby systems. The readings had indeed grown more intense over the past week. More troubling was how they seemed connected, as if invisible lines of force stretched between distant points in space. "It's almost like a web," Brian said quietly. "But covering light years of space. What could create something this massive?" Before Lisa could answer, their communication system suddenly came alive with static. All 3 of them rushed to the main console as fragmented voices broke through the interference. "Coalition fleet destroyed. Massive casualties. Evacuate all outer stations immediately." The message cut off as quickly as it had appeared. Jake tried to boost the signal, but only static remained. They waited in tense silence for several minutes before another fragment came through. "Unknown enemy forces. Technology far beyond. Resistance is futile." Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. In all her years working for the Coalition, she had never heard such desperation in official communications. The Galactic Coalition controlled thousands of star systems and commanded fleets that could destroy entire planets. What enemy could threaten such power? Jake activated the station's emergency protocols, sealing blast doors and powering up their defensive systems. Kepler-7 was a research station, not a military base, but it carried enough weapons to defend against pirates or raiders. "Get everyone to the main conference room," he ordered. "We need to figure out what's happening." Within minutes, the entire crew had gathered in the station's central hub. The room felt cramped with all 12 people present. Lisa could see fear and confusion on every face as Jake explained what they had heard. Dr. Sandra Lewis, the team's senior researcher, spoke first. "Could this be some kind of test? Maybe command is running war games?" "Not like this," Jake replied grimly. Those message fragments were real distress calls. Someone was genuinely terrified. Technician Roy White raised his hand. "Sir, I've been monitoring the automated supply ships. 3 of them were supposed to arrive this week, but none have shown up. And the emergency beacon system went offline yesterday." The implications hit everyone at once. If supply ships weren't running and emergency systems were failing, something catastrophic was happening throughout Coalition space. They were truly cut off. Lisa stood up, her scientific mind trying to process the situation logically. "We need more information before we panic. Let me check my research data again. Maybe there's a connection between these energy readings and whatever's happening." She returned to her lab with Brian, leaving Jake to organize the station's defenses. As she reviewed weeks of data, a pattern began to emerge that made her blood run cold. The energy signatures they had been studying matched readings from sectors where the distress calls originated. "Brian, look at this," she whispered, pointing to a star map covered in red markers. "Every location where we detected these energy patterns corresponds to a coalition system, and the intensity spikes happened exactly when we lost contact with each sector." Brian leaned closer, his face pale in the blue light of the computer screen. "You're saying whatever created these energy readings is the same thing that attacked the coalition?" Lisa nodded slowly. "I think we weren't sent here to study some natural phenomenon. We were positioned as an early warning system, except nobody told us what we were watching for." The realization was terrifying. Research Station Kepler-7 wasn't just isolated at the edge of space. They were sitting in the path of whatever force had apparently destroyed the most powerful civilization in the galaxy. And judging by the energy readings, that force was still moving, spreading its web of destruction toward the outer systems. Lisa saved all her data to portable storage units. If they somehow survived what was coming, this information might be the only clue to understanding their enemy. She looked out the observation window at the stars that had once seemed so peaceful and beautiful. Now those same stars felt cold and hostile, hiding threats beyond imagination. Somewhere out there in the darkness, an enemy moved with technology that made the Coalition's greatest weapons useless. And 12 researchers on a forgotten station might be the only witnesses left to warn the galaxy. Captain Tony Baker stared out the viewport of his ship, the Maverick, watching his small fleet drift through the asteroid field they called home. 3 cargo haulers, 2 converted mining ships, and 1 old military patrol boat made up his entire command. The Coalition had called them scavengers and pirates, but Baker preferred to think of them as survivors. The human fleet had been living on the edges of galactic society for 20 years. They took jobs that other species wouldn't accept, salvaged materials from dead ships and traded with colonies that the Coalition ignored. It wasn't glamorous work, but it kept them independent and free. "Captain, we're getting another distress signal," reported Communications Officer Amy Foster from her station. She was a young woman with red hair and bright green eyes who had joined the fleet after the Coalition rejected her application to their communication corps. Baker walked over to her console. "Same as the others?" "Yes, sir. Automated emergency beacon, but no follow-up messages. That makes 17 signals in the past 2 weeks, all from Coalition space." Chief Engineer Kelly Stone looked up from her maintenance work. She was a tough woman in her 50s who could fix anything with spare parts and determination. "Something big is happening out there, Captain. The Coalition doesn't just go silent like this." Baker nodded thoughtfully. The Coalition had always ignored human settlements and fleets like his, treating them as too primitive to matter. But they had never stopped responding to distress calls entirely. Even during wars, their emergency services kept running. Navigator Ben Cross joined the conversation. He was an older man who had served in Earth's military before humanity joined the galactic community. "I've been monitoring the hyperspace routes. Normal traffic has dropped to almost nothing. The only ships moving are heading away from Coalition core worlds." "Could be some kind of plague," suggested Amy. "Or maybe a civil war." Kelly shook her head. "If it was a civil war, we'd be hearing from both sides trying to hire mercenaries. And plagues don't knock out communication systems." Baker had been thinking the same thing. In his 45 years, he had seen plenty of conflicts and disasters. This felt different. The silence was too complete, too sudden. The Maverick's crew had grown up together over the years. They were all humans who had found each other after being rejected or forgotten by the larger galactic society. Amy had been turned down by the Coalition for being too emotional. Kelly had quit her job at a Coalition shipyard after they refused to let her improve their designs. Ben had never fit into the rigid structure of modern military service. "Captain," called out his second-in-command, Lieutenant Pete Wilson. He was a calm man who had served with Baker for 8 years. "We're receiving a message from the mining ship Liberty Bell. Captain Susan Carter wants to speak with you." Baker activated the communication link. Carter's weathered face appeared on the screen. She commanded the largest ship in their small fleet, a converted asteroid mining vessel that could hold more cargo than 2 regular freighters. "Tony, My sensors are picking up something strange, Carter said without greeting. There's a faint emergency beacon coming from the Kepler sector. It's using coalition frequencies, but the signal is weak and intermittent. Baker frowned. The Kepler sector was deep in coalition space, at least 2 weeks' travel from their current position. Could be a trap. The coalition has tried to capture our ships before. I don't think so, Carter replied. This signal is too weak and too desperate. Someone is in real trouble out there. Kelly spoke up. Captain, if that signal is real, whoever is sending it might have information about what's happening to the coalition. Could be valuable. Could also be dangerous, Pete added. If something destroyed the coalition fleet, what chance do we have? Baker looked around at his crew. They were all watching him, waiting for his decision. These people trusted him to keep them safe, but they also trusted him to do the right thing. He thought about his grandfather who had served in Earth's Navy centuries ago. The old man had always told stories about never leaving people behind, about how humans helped each other even when it was dangerous. Those values had seemed outdated in the modern galaxy, but they were still important to Baker. Amy, can you track that signal? He asked. Yes, sir. It's definitely coming from a coalition research station in the Kepler sector. How long to get there? Ben checked his navigation computer. 12 days if we push the engines. But Captain, that's coalition territory if we're caught there. The coalition isn't responding to anything right now, Baker said firmly. And if there are people in trouble, we have to help them. Kelly smiled. I can get more speed out of these old engines if needed. The ships might complain, but they'll hold together. Baker made his decision. Send a message to all ships in the fleet. We're changing course for the Kepler sector. Anyone who doesn't want to come can stay here, but we're going to find out what happened to that research station. Carter's voice came through the communication link. My crew is with you, Tony. The Liberty Bell will follow the Maverick anywhere. One by one, the other ship captains confirmed they would join the mission. Baker felt proud of his people. They were outcasts and misfits, but they had something the advanced galactic civilization seemed to have lost. They cared about helping others, even strangers, even when it put them in danger. All right, everyone, prepare for hyperspace jump, Baker announced. We're going to find out what's happening in coalition space, and we're going to help whoever needs it. As the small human fleet prepared to leave their safe hiding place, none of them realized they were about to become the galaxy's only hope for survival. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system 12 days later. Captain Tony Baker stared at his scanner readings in disbelief. The system was filled with debris from destroyed coalition ships. Massive chunks of metal drifted through space where a patrol fleet had once protected the research station. My God, whispered Navigator Ben Cross. Look at the size of those pieces. Those were battle cruisers, Captain. Each one could have destroyed our entire fleet. Communications Officer Amy Foster worked frantically at her station. I'm still getting the distress signal from the research station. It's weak, but someone is definitely alive over there. Chief, Engineer Kelly Stone studied the wreckage on her screens. Whatever did this uses energy weapons far beyond anything I've ever seen. The metal isn't just broken, it's been melted at the molecular level. Baker felt a chill run down his spine. The Coalition's battle cruisers were the most powerful warships in the galaxy. Their shields could stop planet-killing weapons, yet something had cut through them like they were made of paper. Captain, called Lieutenant Pete Wilson from the sensor station, I'm detecting active scans coming from deeper in the system. Something big is out there and it knows we're here. Baker made a quick decision. All ships, emergency stealth protocols. Shut down everything except life support and basic navigation. Amy, send a tight beam message to the research station. Tell them we're here to help. The human fleet went dark, drifting like dead metal through the debris field. Their old stealth systems were primitive compared to Coalition technology, but they had one advantage. Whatever enemy had destroyed the fleet might not recognize the simple electromagnetic dampeners that human ships used. Minutes passed in tense silence. Then Amy's console lit up with an incoming message. This is Research Station Kepler 7, came a woman's voice filled with relief and desperation. Thank God someone came. We've been trapped here for 3 weeks. Baker activated the communication link. "This is Captain Tony Baker of the human vessel Maverick. We received your distress signal. What's your situation?" "Captain, this is Dr. Lisa Martinez. We have 12 people alive on the station, but we're running low on supplies. And Captain, we have information about the enemy that destroyed the Coalition fleet. Information that might save the galaxy." "What kind of information?" "I can't explain over an open channel. You need to get us off this station. But be careful. The enemy ships patrol this system regularly. They call themselves the Dominion." Kelly looked at Baker with concern. "Captain, our ships don't have the firepower to fight whatever destroyed those battle cruisers. If the Dominion finds us..." "One crisis at a time," Baker replied. "Amy, plot a course to the research station. Ben, can you get us there without being detected?" The older navigator studied his charts carefully. "Maybe. The debris field extends almost to the station. If we stay close to the larger pieces and move slowly, we might avoid their sensors." The rescue took 6 hours of careful navigation through the wreckage. Baker's small fleet moved like ghosts between the twisted remains of Coalition ships. Twice, they had to shut down completely when Dominion patrol craft passed nearby. The enemy vessels were sleek and dark, moving with an alien grace that made Baker's skin crawl. Finally, the Maverick docked with Research Station Kepler 7. Baker led a small team aboard while his other ships maintained watch. The station's corridors were dark and cold, with only emergency lighting still functioning. Dr. Lisa Martinez met them at the airlock. She was a tired-looking woman in her 30s, with intelligent brown eyes. Behind her stood Commander Jake Phillips and 10 other survivors. They all looked exhausted but hopeful. "Captain Baker," Dr. Martinez said gratefully, "I never thought I'd be so happy to see anyone. We thought we were going to die here." "What happened to the Coalition?" Baker asked as his crew began loading the survivors onto the Maverick. "The Dominion appeared 3 weeks ago," Commander Phillips explained. "Their technology is beyond anything we've seen. Our weapons couldn't even scratch their shields. They destroyed every Coalition fleet that tried to stop them." Dr. Martinez pulled out a data storage device. "But Captain, I've been studying their energy signatures. I think I know why they're so powerful, and more importantly, I think I know how to fight them." Kelly Stone looked at the data with interest. "What did you find?" "The Dominion uses a form of energy manipulation that works on quantum frequencies. It's incredibly advanced, but it has a weakness. Their shields and weapons operate in a very narrow range of frequencies. Most Coalition technology uses similar frequencies, so our weapons were absorbed or deflected." Baker frowned. "But human technology?" "Exactly," Dr. Martinez said excitedly. "Human plasma weapons and kinetic projectiles operate on completely different principles. Your technology is simpler, cruder by galactic standards, but that might be exactly what we need to penetrate their defenses." Kelly's eyes widened as she understood. "You're saying our old-fashioned weapons might actually work against them?" "More than that," Dr. Martinez continued. "Your ships use analog control systems and electromagnetic dampening. The Dominion's sensors are designed to detect advanced Coalition technology. They might not even notice human ships until it's too late." Commander Phillips looked skeptical. "With respect, Captain Baker, your fleet has 6 ships. The Dominion has hundreds, maybe thousands. But we're not the only survivors," Dr. Martinez said hopefully. "I've been monitoring emergency signals throughout this sector. There are other research stations, refugee camps, even some military outposts still holding out. If we could organize them, combine human technology with Coalition knowledge..." Baker felt a spark of hope for the first time since entering the system. "You're talking about building a resistance. I'm talking about saving the galaxy," Dr. Martinez replied firmly. "The Dominion isn't just conquering. They're systematically destroying every civilization that won't submit completely. If we don't stop them, they'll wipe out every free species in the galaxy." As the evacuation continued, Baker thought about what Dr. Martinez had told him. His small fleet of outcasts and misfits might actually have the key to defeating an enemy that had crushed the galaxy's greatest civilization. It seemed impossible, but then again, humans had always specialized in doing the impossible. 2 months had passed since the rescue at Kepler 7, and Captain Tony Baker's small fleet had grown into something much larger. The human ships now traveled with 15 coalition vessels that had escaped the initial Dominion attacks. Refugee camps hidden in dead star systems had provided more survivors, and word of the resistance was spreading through secret channels. Dr. Lisa Martinez worked day and night in the converted laboratory aboard the Liberty Bell. She had been studying captured Dominion technology with Chief Engineer Kelly Stone, trying to understand their enemy better. The results were both encouraging and terrifying. Their energy shields operate on a rotating frequency pattern, Lisa explained to the gathered ship captains during their daily briefing. Coalition weapons automatically adjust to match those frequencies, which is why they get absorbed. But human weapons fire at fixed frequencies that the shields don't recognize as threats. Captain Susan Carter of the Liberty Bell leaned forward. So our plasma cannons can actually hurt them? More than hurt them, Kelly added with satisfaction. I've run simulations based on the wreckage we've analyzed. A direct hit from one of our main guns could punch right through a Dominion cruiser's hull. The news should have been encouraging, but Baker felt the weight of their situation. The problem is getting close enough to use those weapons. The Dominion has been building massive harvest stations throughout Coalition space. Each one is protected by dozens of warships. Navigator Ben Cross had been mapping Dominion movements for weeks. His charts showed a disturbing pattern. They're not just conquering planets, Captain. They're stripping them completely, taking all the resources, all the population. Then they move the stations to new systems. Commander Jake Phillips, who had become Baker's military advisor, studied the maps grimly. It's systematic extermination. They're not interested in ruling the galaxy. They want to consume it entirely. The Resistance had established a hidden base in an asteroid field at the edge of the Vega system. The rocks provided cover from Dominion sensors, and the humans had carved out living spaces using their mining equipment. It wasn't comfortable, but it was safe. Amy Foster monitored communications from her station deep inside the largest asteroid. Captain, I'm getting reports from our scout ships. The Dominion is moving 3 harvest stations toward the Centauri cluster. That's where most of the surviving coalition colonies are hiding. Baker felt his stomach drop. The Centauri cluster contained nearly 1 million refugees spread across dozens of hidden settlements. If the Dominion found them, it would be a massacre. How long do we have? He asked. The stations move slowly because of their size, Ben replied, after checking his calculations. Maybe 2 weeks before they reach the outer colonies. Dr. Martinez looked up from her research. Captain, I think I've found something important. The harvest stations aren't just collection points. They're connected to each other through some kind of quantum network. If we could disrupt that network, we could stop their entire operation in this sector, Kelly finished, her eyes lighting up with understanding. Baker studied the tactical situation. The Resistance now had 21 ships, but most were damaged coalition vessels with limited weapons. Only the 6 human ships had the firepower to penetrate Dominion shields effectively. What would it take to attack one of these stations, he asked. Commander Phillips pulled up detailed scans. Each harvest station is the size of a small moon, Captain. They're defended by at least 30 Dominion warships plus automated defense systems we don't fully understand. But if Dr. Martinez is right about the quantum network, Carter said thoughtfully, we wouldn't need to destroy the station. Just damage the network connection severely enough to shut down their operations. Lisa nodded eagerly. The network nodes are located on the outer ring of each station. They're heavily shielded, but not as well defended as the main structure. A coordinated attack might work. Baker looked around the room at his officers and allies. These people had followed him across half the galaxy, trusting him to find a way to fight back against impossible odds. Many were coalition officers who had never thought they would take orders from a human captain. The refugees in Centauri won't survive if we do nothing, he said quietly. And the Dominion will just keep expanding until every free world is consumed. We have to try. Lieutenant Pete Wilson raised a concern. Captain, even if we succeed, the Dominion will know we're here. They'll send everything they have to hunt us down. Then we better make this count, Baker replied. Amy, send encrypted messages to all resistance cells. Tell them we're planning a major operation. Anyone who wants to help should rendezvous with us at the Titan Nebula. Over the next week, ships arrived from across the sector. Some were coalition military vessels with battle-hardened crews. Others were civilian ships carrying families who had lost everything to the Dominion. A few were alien vessels from species that the coalition had never officially recognized. The final count was 37 ships of various sizes and capabilities. It was still a tiny force compared to the Dominion fleet, but it represented something that hadn't existed in the galaxy for months: hope. Baker stood before the assembled captains and crews in the Liberty Bell's main cargo bay. Hundreds of faces looked back at him, representing dozens of different species. They were all desperate, all frightened, but they were willing to fight. 3 months ago, the Dominion destroyed the greatest military force in galactic history, he began. They did it because they had better technology, better weapons, better ships. But they made one mistake. They assumed that having better technology made them better than us. He paused, looking around at the crowd. We're going to prove them wrong, not because we're stronger or smarter, but because we refuse to give up. Because we believe that every life in this galaxy is worth saving, and we're willing to risk everything to save them. The cheers that erupted from the crowd echoed through the asteroid base. For the first time since the Dominion attacks began, the galaxy's survivors had something to fight for. The Dominion Harvest Station hung in space like a dark metal moon, its surface covered with massive collection arrays and processing facilities. Captain Tony Baker watched it through the Maverick's view screen as his fleet approached from the shadow of a nearby gas giant. The station was even larger than the intelligence reports had suggested. 32 Dominion warships in defensive positions, reported Lieutenant Pete Wilson from the sensor station. They're arranged in 3 rings, around the station, standard patrol formation. Dr. Lisa Martinez sat at a temporary console, monitoring the quantum network signals. The network node is active, Captain. If we can disable it, the entire harvest operation in this sector will shut down. Chief Engineer Kelly Stone had spent the past week modifying the human ship's weapons systems. All plasma cannons are loaded. With the special rounds we developed, they should punch right through their shields if we can get close enough. Baker activated the fleet communication system. All ships, this is Baker. Remember the plan. The human vessels will make the initial attack to draw their attention. Coalition ships provide covering fire and rescue any disabled vessels. We go in fast, hit the network node, and get out before reinforcements arrive. Captain Susan Carter's voice came through from the Liberty Bell. My mining lasers are ready to cut through the station's outer hull once you clear a path. Navigator. Ben cross-checked his instruments one final time. Hyperspace jump calculated and ready, Captain. Once we complete the mission, we can be gone in 30 seconds. The attack began at dawn, ship time. Baker's 6 human vessels dropped out of hyperspace, directly between the Dominion fleet and the harvest station. For a moment, the enemy seemed confused by the sudden appearance of such primitive-looking ships. That confusion cost them dearly. The Maverick's main plasma cannon fired first, its bright blue beam striking a Dominion cruiser amidships. The enemy ship's shields, designed to absorb advanced energy weapons, offered no protection against the crude human plasma. The beam punched through the hull like it was made of paper. Direct hit, shouted Amy Foster from the communication station. Their shields didn't even slow us down. All around the battlefield, human weapons were proving devastatingly effective against Dominion technology. The Liberty Bell's mining lasers sliced through enemy hulls, while the smaller human ships darted between the massive Dominion vessels like angry insects. But the enemy quickly adapted to the new threat. Dominion ships began targeting the human vessels with concentrated fire, recognizing them as the real danger. The primitive human shields designed for asteroid impacts and solar radiation began failing under the assault. Hull breach on Deck 3, Kelly reported as the Maverick shook under enemy fire. I can seal it, but we need to finish this fast. Baker pushed his ship toward the harvest station's outer ring, where Dr. Martinez had identified the quantum network node. The structure was a massive crystalline array that pulsed with alien energy. Destroying it would require precise targeting. "Captain," Amy called out urgently. "The coalition ships are breaking formation. They're coming in to help us." Through the chaos of battle, Baker saw coalition vessels charging into the fight. Ships that had been running and hiding for months were finally striking back at their oppressors. A Centauri battlecruiser, heavily damaged but still fighting, positioned itself between the Maverick and 3 Dominion attackers. "This is Commander Phillips," came a familiar voice over the radio. "All coalition vessels protect the human ships. They're our only chance to end this." The battle became a desperate melee as 37 resistance ships fought against superior numbers and technology. But something had changed. The Dominion ships, which had seemed invincible for so long, were taking heavy damage from human weapons. For the first time since the invasion began, they were losing. Dr. Martinez guided the Maverick's targeting system toward the network node. "There, Captain, the central crystal formation. If we can destroy that, the entire network will collapse." Baker lined up his shot carefully as enemy fire exploded around his ship. The quantum network node filled his targeting display, its alien beauty somehow making it seem more sinister. This device had helped coordinate the destruction of countless worlds. "All human ships concentrate fire on the network node," he ordered. 6 plasma beams struck the crystalline array simultaneously. The structure held for a moment, its alien materials resisting the assault. Then cracks began spreading across its surface, glowing with unstable energy. The network node exploded in a brilliant flash of light that could be seen across the entire star system. The explosion sent shockwaves through the harvest station, causing secondary explosions as processing facilities overloaded. "Network connection severed," Dr. Martinez reported triumphantly. "The quantum link is down. All harvest operations in this sector are offline." But their victory came at a cost. The explosion had damaged several resistance ships, and Dominion reinforcements were already arriving from deeper in the system. Baker made the hardest decision of his military career. "All ships, immediate retreat to hyperspace coordinates," he ordered. "We've accomplished our mission." The surviving resistance vessels jumped to hyperspace just as a massive Dominion fleet arrived to investigate the explosion. They had struck a blow against the enemy, but Baker knew this was only the beginning. Back at their hidden base, the fleet celebrated their first real victory against the Dominion. More importantly, news of the successful attack spread throughout the galaxy. Hidden colonies and scattered survivors began reaching out to join the resistance. Dr. Martinez presented her analysis to the assembled leaders. "The destruction of one network node has disrupted Dominion operations across 12 star systems. If we can organize more attacks like this, we can drive them back," Baker finished. "Not because we're stronger, but because we fight for something they can't understand. We fight for each other." Captain Carter smiled at her old friend. "So what's our next target, Admiral Baker?" Baker looked around at the faces of humans and aliens who had once been enemies, now united in common cause. The galaxy's outcasts had become its saviors, proving that hope could emerge from the darkest places. "We take back our galaxy," he said simply. "One system at a time."